severe allegations, a $100 million ask, a lot more, including the Ballad of the Breast Milk Gobbler. And I am not talking about milk that comes from a cow. All of these things are related to Activision-Blizzard in today's dive into, again, a company that just continually is able to attract the bad headlines. And, I mean, especially when we get onto the bit about the milk, I mean, what? It's a very bizarre, uncomfortable situation. First up, though, we've got, well, let's get into it, all right? New employee testimony sparks calls for increased victims fund. Now, basically, this is the story of an employee who shared her story, right? A full public statement was made about the abuse that she had experienced during her 4 years at the Blizzard Entertainment Studio. And this is a story that was told outside the gates of Blizzard's campus, alongside with Lisa Bloom, who is her lawyer. And Christine's story is really quite horrible. And in some ways, it's what you would expect, right? Working at Blizzard described as being a dream job for her. Now, of course, for me at a point, for many of you watching, that's what a Blizzard job would have been. I think especially for a lot of the women who ended up landing those Blizzard jobs, they ended up going in a far worse direction. I mean, how many times have we heard that? Here's some things from her. I was so excited to be part of a community that seemed to care so much about their employees. Unfortunately, that didn't happen to me. Since I've been employed at Blizzard, I've been subjected to rude comments about my body, unwanted sexual advances, inappropriately touched, subjected to alcohol-infused team events and cube crawls, invited to have casual sex with my supervisors, and surrounded by a frat boy culture that's detrimental to women. Stuff's supposed to be professional in the workplace. Like, what the hell? The whole thing, what the hell? The supervisors, that's clearly an abuse of seniority at the company. Christine raised complaints via her supervisors, but she was brushed aside. So that's great. The men apparently were just joking, and she should get over it. Of course. She was told that her alleged abusers had done nothing illegal and not to go to HR about it. I mean, whether what they did is illegal or not, that's not actually HR, right? HR is supposed to be protecting the employees, ensuring reasonable things happen, and I am sure you can have levels of workplace harassment that don't fall foul of a particular law, but are absolutely not professional conduct in the workplace. In her statement, she explains that she'd been demoted and faced retaliation for raising complaints over this abuse in the first place. She was denied company shares and profit sharing, and also received minimal wages. This whole thing, of course, had a devastating impact on her mental health, but strengthened her desire to build a good workplace, and that's why she's telling her story. Now, her lawyer, Lisa Bloom, also made a statement where she took aim at the proposed $18 million victim fund. Now, here's the thing, right? You and me might think, oh, $18 million, that is a hell of a lot of dollar. But then you remember how many people this is split across. And then you remember that this is a lot of stuff happening in California, and if the recent thing of some Blizzard employees sharing their expenses is anything to go by, California is insanely bloody expensive. So you have to take all of those things into account when we're talking about these victim funds. And so for that region and for the quantity of people that it would apply to, the $18 million is basically kind of tiny and pathetic. So that's what they're going for. I think generally the consensus is that the 18 million number is pretty damn lackluster for the general scope of things. It's also that the $18 million, it doesn't really fully cover everybody because of just stuff with historical issues. Now, Bloom went on to demand 3 outlines. So first is a efficient, fast, and fair process for victims to resolve their claims, alongside, of course, this $100 million fund. To issue a real apology to victims. Again, I think Activision-Blizzard would say they've done that. I think for a lot of people, though, it's like the apology... The thing that will make an apology matter is if the action feels authentic, and people haven't really felt that. the things that people have heard are actually going on within the company, and then to enlist a neutral third party to assess career damage experienced by victims with an aim to address grievances. Now, here's the thing, right? A lot of this career stuff, it's like a snowball going down a hill, right? So the more the snowball goes down the hill, the more snow it collects, the larger it gets. If you just stop the snowball, well, you're going to stop that exponential growth. And you're going to stop the growth curve anyway. And, we all know what that looks like on a graph. And that's kind of what happens to, can happen to people's careers when they are in these situations of, sustained abuse and bullshit for years. And of course, it's pointed out, not a big, law defense firm. And that is the thing. WilmerHale, the law firm. Of course, the very funny thing is Ian Hazzikostas, game director of World of Warcraft, he was a white-collar criminal defense lawyer. And look, obviously, there has to be a prosecution. There has to be a defense in the legal system. And, it is the job of a defense lawyer to defend somebody regardless of public opinion, regardless of all of that, because that is how the system works. But obviously, from an optics perspective, it is a little bit rough, especially when you... I saw a whole thing, it was about like WilmerHale and Guantanamo and stuff, so you're like, man, oh boy, some bad looks there. So obviously I think WilmerHale are just not the people who are really going to be the ones for the job here. Now, this lawyer, Bloom, she's not messing around because she's got experience in this area and also recently represented victims of, I'm pretty sure, an individual whose name I can't say. Suffice to say, it is an individual who, did have a private jet that went to a certain island and also did have a little black book of contacts that also did include Bobby Kotick. So, that individual. Also has represented accusers of Bill O'Reilly and Donald Trump, as well as Janice Dickinson's defamation suit against Bill Cosby, and was also enlisted in all of the Weinstein stuff to help fight against his suit of allegations, and had this to say: as a women's rights advocate, I have been blunt with Harvey, and he has listened to me. He is an old dinosaur learning new ways. She actually consulted Weinstein from late 2016 to October 2017 when she stepped down because of public pressure. So there you go. This is obviously a, pretty big tier lawyer, I suppose, who very much operates in this area in high profile cases. At any rate, though, that basically just means, the sort of some of the big guns are out, right? And obviously this has been all done in a way like it's not just a press release. It is actually going to their campus, the same place the walkouts are happening. So this is being very well orchestrated for, public appeal, raising awareness. Actually, it's not really a get out the vote thing, obviously, because there's no voting going on. But it's kind of like that, right? It's like really trying to engage people and get them talking about the story. And there's certainly been a lot of success in that with really all of this case. So we had all of that going on from their side, and then from the Activision-Blizzard side, well, we appreciate the courage of our current and former employees in coming forward with reports of misconduct, and we are truly sorry for any victims of people whose conduct did not live up to our values. Here's the thing that I've realized, though. Your values don't matter, right? What matters is your values through the lens of reality and if they're actually practiced. And I think that's the thing. So, they have to start realizing that their values on paper are not actually the values that are practiced in their buildings. And that's going to be a bitter pill to swallow. It's going to be obvious to a lot of the people who work in those buildings, maybe not so much for the people who work in the building, a little bit further away, that's a little bit better furnished, that has a C-suite in it. The company is committed to creating an environment we can all be proud of. We are in the process of implementing significant changes and improvements to the scope, structure, and efficiency of our compliance and human resources teams, reporting systems, and transparency into our investigation processes. Now, the thing there is, if these things are all true and it actually does happen, then perhaps they can say a statement like this and be believed. Right now, we need to wait and see where that actually goes. I have heard mixed reports. I've heard things of, Blizzard employees talking about the situation really not being as great as you might think given the sort of the current big crisis. But also, we have seen people being removed. We have seen their policy on retaliation, right? So it's the same old response. And ultimately with this, everyone knows there's no quick fix. So we will just have to wait and see and listen to the people who are, on the receiving end of these changes. Now, moving on, the pressure only increases for Activision-Blizzard in this current environment because there is now a strike fund, and of course there have been calls to unionize for ages, but those are, they're only getting stronger, right? Now, this strike fund is basically so that employees can go on strike, but they can basically not have a big financial hit, and that's because a lot of people are not exactly in the best financial position. And you would think, oh, really? Working at a big games company, making billions there's billions of dollars coming in. No, actually. There's some of the stories of, there being Ubers in the parking lot at Blizzard. We've heard those, of course. And it's that situation where, if you're a more tenured dev, you're going to be doing pretty damn okay. But there is you could almost say a lower class who do not have that solid financial position. People who are, this is a part of the world where you can be on a quantity of money that would have you being very comfortable where I live, but in California, be paycheck to paycheck. At least if you want to live reasonably close to your place of work. So it's a rough enough situation. So that's what's going on, right? There was one of the little things I saw on this where they put $30 into the fund and said, this is where my WoW subscription would have been. Or, this is the money that would have been my WoW sub. You have it. Which is obviously sort of thing is going to sting to Blizzard. And many of us in the WoW scene have got to wonder how WoW is doing as a business, because they sure have been pushing more store mounts, more optional purchases and things like that, as as of late. So it's interesting. Of course, we've got some comment here, from employees just about what's actually going on, about the purpose of the strike fund. So there you go. And I suppose if this strike fund ends up, doing decently enough, then you could have a situation where more people will be striking. I mean, either way, it's not like this has stopped people from doing walkouts. Right. It's time for the milk thief. And, this is a pretty messed up situation. Obviously, it's, not something that, comes close to, my experience, right? But, from what I understand, basically, people pump so they can have milk, so that their babies can have the milk, presumably because their babies aren't in the office with them, right? And it's, it's just one of those things like, hey, if you want to be working your job and also doing childcare, that's a really, really big challenge, especially if you are working in the office. So, accommodations like being able to pump and, have that there for the kid, that's really important. So whenever somebody is stealing that, that's really messed up. Really messed up indeed. Especially if that ends up with a situation where there's not enough for a child, right? Right? I mean, so it's pretty, it's messed up in the whole thing of this is for babies, what are you doing? But it's also messed up because you have to think, well, why is somebody going to steal that? I mean, you can get cow's milk, goat's milk, almond milk, oat milk, coconut milk. There's lots of other milks you can get. So why are you going to the human one that you're stealing from your coworkers? I mean, to my head, that's got to be, that's got to be more of a sexuality thing, right? That's what it would seem to be to me anyway. And, people can be into whatever the hell they're into or whatever, but you're going around stealing this from people at work? What? So, not only do I basically see this as, as a sexual harassment. This is sexual harassment. It's also, stealing food from babies. It's being pretty disrespectful extremely disrespectful of the mothers. This is a really messed up story. This is really messed up. I mean, I have a feeling they're not, they're not just someone left the milk out. It's went out of date. I guess we'll have to use the other milk for our cup of tea. I very much doubt it's that. So, yeah, this is a tweet from Jessica Gonzalez, who no longer works at Blizzard Entertainment, but did choose to signal boost this, which I believe comes from the Blizzard Slack. I'm hoping that a number of items was fixed when I brought this up a few years ago. Everyone who was involved has since left, and I last reported something. It appears consistently people drop the ball in maintaining these things. Some of the issues we encountered. This is, I think, in regards to like the lactation room, which I believe is like a legal requirement that at least accommodations for that sort of thing are actually made from others. So the chairs would rock backward and could not be locked into position to properly, like the proper position, for it all. So people ended up just sitting on the floor. The tables were made of wood, which was porous and textured, so even though they were cleaned, breast milk built up and caked on the table, discoloring it and leaving trapped milk in the table, which doesn't seem like a particularly pleasant situation. The outlet situation was a fire hazard. There was only 2 plugs per room, one plug being used by a lamp with a USB jack for phones, the other one for the pump. No outlet for laptops or extra space to place a laptop if people wanted to work. I mean, hey, if you're a big biz, like, hey, you got these employees going off to do something, give them a plug so they can use their laptop and still do work, I guess. So just, not the best things. But, it gets worse is the point here. Insufficient storage space. There were no locked cubbies for mums to keep their pumps safe, so many had to basically lug them, across the campus. And that was where it gets a bit more weird. So refrigerators had padlocks that were not consistently locked or could be accessed by other employees. Employees were using the fridges to store their beer in, right? So, I mean, look, don't be putting your beer in the breast milk fridge. What the hell, right? But the reason there were locks in the first place is that nursing people's breast milk would be stolen. So these things originally had locks. Those locks were there because the stuff was being stolen. The locks end up, I suppose, going away or being breached, and people are now storing like cans of beer there. No one was keeping up sanitation standards. It did not appear that housekeeping was cleaning those rooms consistently, constantly like the way the rest of the office was. Here's another one from Stephanie Leon, and I believe this is the more like, well, big statement. Actually, you know what? I'm not HR, so I'm done tiptoeing around these issues to be sensitive. Men stole them. And so Stephanie works in security. And I think one of the things you'll probably see is like someone working in security. They're going to be going around a whole bunch of the building. They're probably going to hear things and just, know things that a bunch of other people are blind to. But, maybe because they're not in like a core development job or something, the company won't treat them as well as we've actually seen in some of these companies. So yes, man stole them. And if they want to keep that hush-hush, maybe they should circle back to me when I report these things and share some transparency on how they, number 1, plan to respond, and number 2, how to mitigate these issues. Instead of blanket statements like, we took care of them, it's my job to protect employees. I'm not here to handhold to make people comfortable. I'm here to provide facts and testimony of my investigations. As one of the few women in security, I'm quite frankly tired of seeing HR not follow through on things that should be followed up on. And, if we have somebody who works in security saying, hey, men are stealing the breast milk. I mean, bloody hell. HR should not be, locking down that sort of thing. Now, there's some other things. She has more to add, like the time she was literally rejected from the pumping room in Building 7 because, more than once, because men in Team 1 were using it to take naps. Which, again, as is pointed out, there's actually a legal requirement for that. So, and HR defended it as, napping being a legitimate use of the room. And look, naps, sure thing. In the right place, and if there isn't the right place for that, provide one. And then as it goes on, it's basically just your TLDR of there's a bunch of complaints here, they're not really being handled appropriately, and here's the thing that matters, right? After bringing this up in today's chat, facilities, like the facilities team, swiftly removed the tables. The tables that were like porous and not sanitary. What I'm tired of is escalating things, HR saying they'll be handled, and then nothing happening. Now I have to be unprofessional and leverage groups and now social media for action to be taken. So this is a case where you've got an employee, they're trying to go through the official channels to get the right thing, to get those official channels to do their goddamn job. Doesn't work. Now it has to go on like this. So that's just like a little anecdote. I think, number one, those people not being taken care of properly is obviously an issue. And number two, we do have somebody from security saying that men were stealing the breast milk. And it's like, why is that being done? What's going on here? Like, there's not many comfortable answers to that question, is there? I suppose this is hardly a comfortable topic, is it? So that's basically the situation for the latest on Activision-Blizzard. A few more anecdotes. I think for the main thing on this, it shows just a level of not taking it seriously and a level of disrespect that is just unacceptable. And I think it's anecdotes like this that give you like a little bit more of a window into how things, perhaps would have been like, and maybe in a way that was not super transparent to loads of people at the company. I'd imagine, that all of the women probably knew about this stuff, but, it's just that thing where, I guess it's the thing for people to think of in this, like, sometimes the people who are perpetrating the bad stuff here, they'll be real creeps to women and stuff like that, but when they talk to you, like, if you're their friend or something, you're not going to pick up on any of that shit. And, I suppose that's just the thing with these. People can act differently in different scenarios, right? And I think just that means that if these things aren't handled properly and aren't dealt with, it can all just friggin' fester and turn into this disgusting big mess, which is exactly the sort of thing that is, that is going on here. Because I'm sure there's plenty of people who, if they knew that this clandestine milk gobbling was going on, probably would have said, "What the fuck are you doing? That is messed up." But, it's clandestine. And when the people who actually notice it don't friggin' get listened to by the proper, the apparatus of the company, nothing gets done. It all just festers and gets worse. And then I think you have this thing where, standards slip. Oh, the room's a bit messy. Oh, there's beers in the fridge. Standards slip and slip and slip. Norms shift and change. Standards get lower and lower. And it's just a spiral downwards, man. So, sucks. Hey, it's good to see the facilities team, now that this stuff has been raised, have went in and fixed the problem. Perhaps the rest of this will be properly looked into, as it should be, because, frankly, the idea of men going around stealing the breast milk that's for the babies, that's messed up, and that should be looked into. Never ends, does it? Right, okay, that's today's story. That's what's going on. It's the sort of thing I can't be like, hope you enjoyed the video. It's not exactly enjoyable, but, I mean, bloody hell, it is, for better or worse, it is interesting, isn't it? So we can hope these things don't happen again. Have a great day, everybody. I will see you next time.